welcome Ellie from Paines Plough, and also I'm sure some of you do know Kirsty Taylor as well, who is a playwright from here in Bradford. Do you want to just do a little introduction of yourselves? Ellie, we'll start with you.
Hiya, my name's Ellie, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the producer at Paines Plough. I mean, firstly, just a massive well done to those pieces of work. Like, what a brilliant mix of work, it's fantastic. So well done, everyone. We are a touring new writing company, so we take plays across the UK and internationally, although I've never been part of the international, so I'm waiting for that one to happen. But we take plays to big theatres, but also to community centres. We kind of go everywhere, and we're a writer-led organisation. So we focus on new writing and new stories. And we also run a venue at the Edinburgh Fringe called Roundabout, which is a tent, a pop-up tent that we run in August. So that's Paines Plough.
Yeah, just to add on to that, obviously, so you also currently have a 3-year programme called Tour the Writer,
Yes.
Which has 7 regional hub partners, of also which Freedom and Bradford 2025 are hub partners here in Bradford, obviously.
Yeah, so my bosses Katie and Charlotte set that up to combat the loss of literary departments across the UK. We know that's kind of something that disappears kind of as the first thing when cuts happen. And it's a way to work with strategic partners like the brilliant Freedom Studios to combat that, to support writers in the regions. And something I've been seeing the last couple of days as I've been travelling around is create networks of writers. It can be quite a solitary job, and it's a way of connecting them and connecting all of the networks to kind of come together to hopefully create some brilliant work. And then hopefully at the end of the 3-year programme is that some of these shows can go into production and there's real tangible, shows at the end of this process. Fingers crossed.
Great, thank you. And Kirsty, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Kirsty, my pronouns are she and her. I'm a writer. Started off mostly with poetry over the years, and the last couple of years going more into theatre and some TV stuff. And I'm just passionate about Bradford and people. I love working with people to tell stories. And the first play that I did was in 2022, Cashy Sees the musical, and that's kind of led me down this path. And this year I'm on the K Mellor Fellowship Programme, working with Leeds Playhouse and the BBC and Roller Productions to develop some new ideas for telly and for theatre.
Brilliant. I'm really good that I didn't come to that. I came to Bradford after you did Cashy Seeds, because everyone always talks about it and refers back to it, and I can tell by people I thought a few people saw it as well. Well, thanks for joining me today. We'll just briefly have just a little talk about new writing, where we think new writing is, and then just talk about in the sense of where it is nationally and where things are, what the reality is regionally as well, and specifically here in Bradford, and then maybe just open it up for some questions if anyone has any. Well, Ellie, let's start with you, because you said you have been recently going around visiting a few different organisations, and obviously Paines Plough is an organisation that works within a national remit and within a national framework. We do hear a lot at the moment about crisis, and obviously, there's a crisis in every aspect of society, really. But we talk about crisis in a kind of cultural provision as well, and we know culture is often something that always is one of the first things to go, is to say when we talk about cutbacks, but then also about what that situation is having as it draws down, and specifically to new writing. So I know at the last, obviously, with Arts Council, and I don't believe that this was in any way a kind of a targeted, purposeful action, but there were a number of new writing organisations which did fall out of the national portfolio organisation. Of course, Freedom Studios was one of those organisations, and it does feel a bit as financial crisis deepens, that there is a number of new writing theatres around the country that do feel like we're really getting squeezed at the moment, and this is one of the aspects of theatre that is really getting squeezed. I know we've seen recently with news reports of cutbacks of places like the Royal Court and stuff like that. And if the Royal Court is seen as Britain's leading new writing theatre, if they're feeling the pinch, then you kind of begin to think, well, what must it be like for everyone else? Do you? Sorry, paint quite a good picture. But as you've been around and as you're talking to different people, I mean, do you feel that? Do you feel that is a reality of what is happening at the moment?
I think maybe sometimes when you're in a crisis, you don't quite realise you're in a crisis. And I know that at PP, we are in a really privileged position. But to take the current tour I'm trying to book at the moment as like a really key example of that is that I'm really struggling to book a tour. And I'm really struggling to get people to, listen to the show, listen to us, and want to give us more than sort of a couple of pennies to bring the show to them. And it's really, really, really hard out there. And I think something that I see is that like the supply of new writing is so strong. There's so many people writing, like as we've seen this evening. There's new voices, there's new people coming through the door, voices that we haven't heard before and are really chronically underserved. And they're writing work, and it's so brilliant. But then there's this demand where there's theatres who are battling against the cost of keeping the building open and the cost of, their marketing departments and their finance departments going, but can we bring the audiences in for this? And when you've got kind of a new show versus King Lear he's dead, so it's fine, I can say it. That's going to bring school groups. That's going to bring people through the door, and this is what we're kind of battling against. I hear the word risk loads, like the risk of new writing, and I'm like, we're not risky. Like we're risky and we're naughty and we're like cheeky. That's what we do, but we're not risky. And I'm kind of sick of hearing it. Yeah, I'm saying it so many times, and I'm looking at how we can combat that word. But yeah, it's really bleak. But then there's organisations like you guys, there's organisations like us to bring my own, blow my own trumpet, but like who are fighting and who will stretch that fiver as far as it'll go and who will really champion. But there's organisations like us that, can only take so many knockbacks. And how many times can we be knocked back before we actually also are in a situation where some of our, friends found themselves last year, the year before. Yeah.
And do you find that, because obviously in London there is a lot of different places where people can get work on and can make work fast and can put stuff up. And do you feel that pinch is happening equally as in London as it is elsewhere, or do you pick up that there is it's different in other places?
I think you're totally right, but you've got things like Vault Festival, which was a massive platform for new writing. Some of my first shows, were at Vault Festival, and that's, it's not gone, but it's gone into a different form, and whether it comes back is a TBC. I think that's really happening, and I also think, again, and I look regionally as well in the work that I do, is that it feels very similar in London as it does elsewhere. But I feel like London, it's quite saturated, and it can be. Yeah. So maybe this is a way of kind of shifting what we can do, because we know those festivals have their own faults in their own way, and what that means. So it's how do we shift that going forward? Yeah.
I mean, so I've almost been at Freedom at 12 months now. And I came here in April last year from live theatre in Newcastle. So the North East is actually really, really unusual and really lucky that they do have a purpose, new writing focused theatre in live theatre there. So I've come from somewhere, a region where there is almost that kind of ecosystem that exists already. And one thing I have noticed moving to West Yorkshire is that although there is the talent here and there is, talent, something I used to say, it's never a problem to find talent. Talent is always there. It's how you can create systems that actually help people. And although there are lots of different theatres doing different things, no one specifically is looking at new writing. People have new writing as part of their programmes. So I can see where, a lot of the artists we've worked with in terms of Bradford Voices, Bradford Voices for Freedom has been as much of trying to think of what can freedom be what opportunities can we, in our very own limited, small capacity way, what is the best way we can serve those people there. So I can see specifically here in West Yorkshire, there is a lot of holes in the system, I think. And I'm going to ask you, Kirsty, actually. I mean, do you think that's true from what I've seen? I mean, as someone who was from Bradford, who was here, and who was creating writing as a writer yourself?
Yeah, massively. I speak from a really privileged position at the minute because I've got on like a very unique programme for a new writer, which I know like those opportunities don't come around a lot, like a whole year placement with support and like financial support as well. And if I didn't get that, like I honestly like don't know what the next step were going to be for me, because we had a really successful run of Cashies, like that was my first play, but and to some extent we really like made it up. None of us had ever done a play before, and we did it in that Bradford style. Like we have quite limited things here, so we kind of just, you know, we did it in a shop, we just did it how we felt was right, which is very freeing in some ways, but it was so hard to do. And like there isn't a week really that someone doesn't mention what's happening with Cashies, like when can we see it back. And even if you have like loads of people interested in it and that support, like it's just been so hard to make anything happen with it again. Like people say all the time, oh, can it come back for 25? Like doing a play, like it literally took the life out of me. And you know, I had an amazing team of people doing it with me. Like I couldn't have done it without the team that we did. But I think my point is like those things feel a bit one-off here. And yeah, like I got to a crossroads last year of like I applied for the KML thing, and if I didn't get it, I literally don't feel like I'd be pursuing my writing, because you know, you've got to do other things, haven't you? And I've been on like I think there's been like 3 programmes in my career as a writer that have been like massive stepping stones. So like one was like a BBC New Voices thing, and it was working with Radio 3, and then the second one was like a Jerwood thing, and then the third one is this. And I feel like, yeah, like those programmes, and like it's so good that Freedom Studios are doing like even this platform tonight, because I just don't think these opportunities come up a lot, especially in Bradford, especially in Yorkshire. So when I've managed to get over them, like those 3 programmes over like 10 years, and some of them have been a couple of months long, but they've like massively stayed, you know, like just elevated like the next step and just raised my ambition. Like it's every little bit of it has felt like work experience, like going in, watching how people do it, and then trying to blag doing it yourself afterwards. Like that is literally what it's felt like. And yeah, and you know, I meet loads of writers, loads of talented people, and there's really little place to signpost them, I find, locally. And there's one thing I loved about Kemi's thing tonight. Like I remember Kemi coming up with that idea before, and being able to platform it at something like this. I feel like that's how ideas happen in Bradford, and people are very flexible with, you know, like that was something really different for him doing this night. And you've got to kind of like, you've just got to make it happen. Like no matter how you do it, you've just got to make it happen and take that risk, and you know, hopefully like you will get that support with it. But it does, I feel like, not to be bleak, but I've been lucky, and it still feels like there's quite limited opportunity to really push and to get a play on. Even when you've got that support, like getting a play on is so hard.
Yeah, because it's always like, well, what's the next step is always the question. Yeah. Because I mean, what we saw 7 pieces tonight, and I think in some ways all 7 of them could have another life in some way, you know. Although all those writers, what do those writers do next? You know, we'll be having those conversations. But again, it's, you know, for Freedom, as I say, as a company, you know, project funded and trying to find things. It's always going to be a struggle. But again, things happen. You know, like as I say, to go back to like you know, Kemi and You Got Bars. I mean, you know, that's a conversation that happened. And then this happened, and who knows what the next step will be, and who knows what the next step for those writers who've been involved. I mean, hopefully, you know, there's conversations that can come out of this, and there's further support that places like Freedom can give. But yeah, so I think let's try not. I'm trying not to be bleak now. It was my fault because I painted that bleak picture in the first place. But I guess we've always got to have hope, haven't we, in terms of what can happen.
And when you've got, you know, them ideas that you just can't let go of, like you will make it happen, you'll do it in whatever way. And you know, like Cashies were like 4 years in the making, really. And it's when it's something that you just can't let go of, like for any people, writers who have got those ideas, like you will make it happen. It is doable. and you kind of know if it's worth going ahead with when you can't when it's actually in you. So
yeah, and and also, I mean, we look at like what is the future, and obviously with Bradford 2025, and we do think that hopefully that will be a bit of a shift in the way culture is thought of in Bradford and the relationship Bradford has with culture, and hopefully that will be a gear change as well in the right direction for and kind of fight against the tide of some of the other stuff we've talked about. Should we open up and see if anyone's got... Does anyone have any questions for anyone on our panel? Oh, we've got Laura straight at the front.
It's for you, Kirsty. I was just interested in how, if you still...
I've got a mic.
Oh.
Way!
Hiya. Kirsty, I was just interested in how you use your poetry in your playwriting, if you still do. Kind of what was that transition like from poetry to playwriting, and does poetry still have a place in your playwriting?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I feel like it's always a good starting point for me, especially with an idea, because I feel like with poetry I can kind of sum it up, or like in Cashy Seas we had the narrator that was like the poetry and music as well, but I wrote all the raps for that, so I like to still feel like I include that in the style, and I feel like there's so much to... I don't know, like it's my go-to style, so like I am working and I'm stuck with an idea at the minute, so I have started writing it as a poem, a really long poem, just to kind of get going with it. So yeah, for me that is a bit of a go-to, like it's my comfort zone, whereas the playwriting isn't. But dialogue was so much easier and not having to fucking rhyme every I did actually love writing the dialogue in Cashy Seas, but I find in terms of like framing an idea, I really do like to still use the poetry, even if it doesn't get used in the piece. Like the piece I'm writing at the minute, I don't know if it will, but it's good to kind of like get my key messages in the poem. Yeah.
Do you have another question? We've got this. Oh, there's someone at the back.
I can shout very loudly.
Sure?
Yeah.
All right.
I just want to say thank you firstly for opening up the discussion, because I'm a new producer and it sometimes feels like, oh, it's just me, but it's really nice to hear that sort of everyone's in the same boat. This is quite a specific question about End Fringe, so I'm very fortunate that I'm going through my first year and I got funding to go up, so I feel very lucky from the present. I was just wondering, do you think there's something missing in Yorkshire, the fact that we have not a fringe circuit as such? We've got Bolts in London, we've got Edinburgh Fringe in Scotland. Do you think Yorkshire and sort of the Midlands are missing something like that? Just curious to throw that out to anyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to see some. I know like they did start to try to do a Bradford Fringe Festival, and again like it's just the graft of the people, really good intentions making it happen. And I know Leeds Playhouse has like a platform for new writers and stuff, but I would love to see, because a big part of my process and just being inspired is being able to see stuff, and there isn't like much that I like up in Yorkshire at the moment. Like I'm going to see a play in a couple of months in London, like saving up to go to see it, but yeah, it's so important to be able to see them, be exposed to like new interesting work that's going to like challenge you, inspire you. I think we need that, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, I guess, in terms outside of places like, where you don't have huge population areas, so like London or Edinburgh, where everyone from London goes to Edinburgh for a month in the summer. That was mean. I didn't mean that. But also, Fringe has been going for so many years, and I think it's such a juggernaut. But to get the kind of mechanics of something like that going are really difficult as well for something Fringe, which is usually a grassroots, starting point. But I think start with a Fringe network, Fringe things happening. I mean, they do. It's just hard to get that conversation going and that network going. And but I think with people like you who are starting out, who've chosen to be a producer. That's kind of that where it begins. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying you do it, but you're one link in a chain that will. Have a conversation with Freedom. That will come and email us, and we'll have a conversation, and we'll see, what can be done. And let's just, if we all keep those conversations going, then hopefully something like that could come out in the future.
Sounds good.
Thanks. What do you think of it?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to chat about that. And I
Yeah.
think that I was just thinking there, like that. I mean, I don't know the origins of the Fringe in Edinburgh, but it was loads of scrappy pieces,
Yeah.
and it grew like every
It
time.
was meant to be artists with their money coming together to perform.
And and I say this from a place of we go every year, and we do sit down and have a big conversation about why we go and what's the reasons we go, and we go to change it, and we go to try and be better than the others. Yeah, maybe. And we go to be a bit anarchic, but I think it needs that again. It needs that space to try and the space to fail and the space to see loads of stuff and to see work and see things you don't like and see things you do like. And how can we get back to that? I don't think we're going to solve that now, but that's always percolating in people's minds. And I, stop putting on pepper, sod and pig at the assembly ground, for God's sake. Like, come on, let's see some. It's great, and it's great for some people who love that. But we need to see, people failing and people being brilliant and coming and testing and having conversations. That's my favourite part of Fringe, personally. And having something like that in more places across the UK would be brilliant. And it needs brilliant people to kind of come together to do that and grow year on year. I think is important.
Maybe also, we've got. Let's go for. It's Becky.
Just going back to what you were saying before about touring and kind of hearing that risk taking. I've heard that quite a bit of. We're not taking new writers. It's a risk. And I've also heard a lot. This is me touring locally in Yorkshire. The only thing that we're programming at the moment and is selling are tribute bands and comedians. Is that Yorkshire? Is that, there is obviously an audience out there. Why are they not coming? Is it that it's too expensive? Is it we're not telling the right stories? Why are people staying at home? Why is there an only audience for tribute bands and comedians? And maybe that's your new play, Kirsty. Yeah.
For example, we had a quite successful play at Fringe last year. We took it to London and it sold out, and then it went on a kind of 6-week tour that I'd booked pre-Fringe. Trying to book that tour even last year, really tricky. And then I got back from that tour, and in my the director's inbox, who also happens to be my boss, was a load of theatres going, you're touring again? Cool, the show did well, do you want to come? And it performed in a way that they liked, it got some recognition, and therefore they wanted it to come back. And that's really expensive to do. I've got to store a set, I've got to make sure my cast is still available, I've got to re-rehearse. So I can't tour that show again, we can't. We're taking it to London for another 4 weeks, but to try and line it up so that show gets to go out and tour again is really tricky. That was a really key example to me, is that the piece had to, perform in a certain way, be seen in a specific way to then tour, which felt mental. Why couldn't you take it on the grounds of this was an extraordinary writer with this really kind of sort of, ridiculous story about dating, which actually spoke to loads of people for what it was, straight off the bat. So you're not alone in terms of Yorkshire. I'm seeing it across the UK. But to put a really happy stamp on something is there are theatres who love new writing, who are still interested in the work, and who are going, come on, come and test it out on us. And it's making sure that we as Paines Plough keep up that relationship with those partners, keep bringing back really brilliant work, brilliant diverse work, but not being afraid of the work that we're putting on. I'm really lucky that I don't really ever have to talk about the word risk. I feel like I talk about it outside, but when I'm with my team, we don't say that. Maybe my boss who looks at the budget is thinking about risk, but she's not coming to us and saying it, because they really trust what we make. So I think it's about finding those partners, like Freedom Studios and other partners that we have, who really trust us and trust in new writing, and trust that their audiences will love new writing, that they don't just want Donny Osmond's tribute act to come and see them, which some people like, and that's brilliant, but that other people are also craving new stories. So for us, it's working with key partners who have the same belief that we do, but finding those is tricky as well. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I'm happy to chat more as well if that's useful.
B, you had a question.
Yeah, so it's a bit negative as someone who's unemployed trying to be an aspiring something. Do you have a positive message that's to all of you with regard to getting funding and trying to be someone in the arts world?
I think, just as much as trying to get on like programs, I'm a sucker. Like I will try to do every workshop, everything. Like I'm massively imposter. Like think I still, and I do need to learn everything. But the other side of that is just get it write your thing, get it to a point where you're so happy with it, so you can, take it to people and keep going on about it to people, because you can keep going on every single course, but like you need to just get it at some point. So I feel like that's advice to you and me. So then you've got this thing that you can take to different people. Like you say, some people are, out there are really looking for that and sparking that idea, and it's got to be unique and interesting in all the different things. But like if you're really putting that graft into it, it will be. And just getting brave with it and putting it in people's faces.
Yeah. Do you want to? Well, I mean, look at Freedom Studios in some way. Do you mean? The wider context is dark at the moment, but let's face it, it's always shit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it just might be a bit shitter now than it was last year. Maybe next year it'll be less shit. But in some respects, I think, a year ago, Freedom had just come out of national portfolio as a national portfolio organisation from Arts Council, running out of money. Here we are, 12 months later, we've just done a shit-hot showcase, and let's hope that, in next year, we're going to be there again. You've got to kind of take things a bit at a time, but you've got to be positive and you've got to look forward. And if you believe in what you're doing, and you're willing to put yourself behind it and put the work in to try and make it happen, then fingers crossed it will.
And I think getting a creative team, like once you're at a position where you get people in, that's a really good way to invest in your idea, and getting people who are as passionate about it as you. Like that were completely changed everything for me, getting that, just the initial small team, and then when it grew, it kind of finding those people that align with what you're doing it's so solitary in it, writing, and it's can be really disheartening doing it constantly by yourself. So like bringing in those people that you trust when it's ready to, I think, can be really like get you to that next step as well.
What was the question? Yeah, sorry. Al.
It's interesting what you're saying about touring. I mean, obviously a writer needs to be part of the ecology, and that ecology really is, I think that one of the key parts of that ecology is touring. The other is what's happening in the regional theatres. Both of those things are in a bit of a state. This is a piece of information, before my question really. The piece of information is, I heard the other day that the Arts Council is having a series of roundtables about touring and the fact that it's not working, and it's been broken for years, let's face it. So I don't know who's being invited to those roundtables, but it might be worthwhile trying to find out, because I think the voices of, the kind of things you've been saying today are really important, and the voice of writers needs to be included in that. My question is, writing for performance is great, and as you said, Kirsty, quite rightly, it's really pretty solitary, and as you also said quite rightly, that team around you is important. But I think there's a really necessary part of your craft as a writer, and that is how your words are interpreted by the director, obviously, and also the designer, and also the sound designer, or the composer, or the musical director, or the choreographer. And the list is huge, and it is sometimes quite difficult for someone starting off in their career to kind of understand that actually you're part of a big collaborative process, and how all of that kind of has to find ways of working together. In a way, I don't say that, in a way a script is a set of notes to be used by actors, of course, but also all those other people I've named, and I just wonder if you, as part of a process, is it possible to begin those kinds of conversations between writers and all those other areas of artistic practice which end up with the things we see in front of us?
Yeah.
Well, that process is so fascinating to me, and before I did Cashy Seas, I didn't know what that process was, and I applied for like an assistant role at Leeds Playhouse, so I could go watch it happen for 6 weeks and then copy exactly how they did it for my own play, because where else are you having those conversations? And again, it were literally making it up, but it turns out everyone's making it up, like even at the Playhouse. So, but it was actually like it felt like work experience going to watch how those conversations happen. And you're right, like I used to be a teacher and teach drama, and again, it's a dying subject when actually there's so many important roles and careers to be had, and watching that happen in a place like Leeds Playhouse or in any theatre it's just magical. And the fact that the kids are, you don't really get to learn that at school, even in this position, like, it's really hard to come by, and I'd love that if there were more training around that, about how, you as a writer have that conversation and communicate, and just how they work as well. Like, I really seek out like having those chats with the different roles. I didn't even know stage manager were a job until 6 months before, and they had a stage manager. I was like, oh my God, stage managers, man, like
good job.
It's the bit, so important. But I'm still learning, and I feel like more courses and like training, teaching people how to do that, and even just observing that process is fascinating. And again, it's about having privileges to be in those rooms, which I've got now, and some people just don't have. So there needs to be more open door policies, and I feel like I do look for that a bit in Bradford, but not much gets made in Bradford. Like it does and it doesn't. We don't have a producing theatre, so we don't have as much infrastructure to be able to invite and open them doors to people. But those experiences are so crucial. Like, I wouldn't definitely be able to do it without having just that 6 week at the Playhouse. So
I think in a way, doing something like we've done this weekend, ideally would have had a bit more time. Everything was kind of like really kind of quick turnaround. So you had like most shows either had a day or a day and a bit rehearsal done in the week. If a lot of writers were working, they couldn't come in. Today we had very kind of quick turnaround in terms of how we present it, how we kind of mount it technically. But again, I'd love to do something like this where you could be a bit, so those writers who was their first time writing something actually have a bit more of that hands-on experience in terms of being in the rehearsal room, being in the theatre when we do that kind of, how do you kind of present something technically, what does the technical manager do, what does the lighting person do, what's the sound designer, what is a sound cue, things like that, which are really important bits of information, because it then informs you when you're creating something, because when you're writing something and building a play as a writer, you begin to think about those things, and you begin to think about how your writing could be in a wider sense. But again, I think there are issues like you're not having something like a producing theatre where you can have a bit more time. I mean, Mind the Gap are fantastic, but they're not a producing theatre, and this isn't what their venue was made for, and they've been brilliant this weekend. But they don't have the capacity for us to spend a week here, which we probably would need to do something like that. So I don't know, as things change, and I think that idea, but something about Bradford not having that producing theatre or producing space is something I think that does need to be looked at longer term. But I don't know, hopefully to continue to do those opportunities where people do get that opportunity to see how something is made, I think is really important. I think you really onto something there, Al, about that.
And I think Leeds Playhouse does have opportunity where you can go in 1 or 2 days to like the big shows and stuff like that. Like, as anybody, like, you don't have to be working there or anything. And that's, again, as a writer, as a directors, producers, if anyone's new to that, like, just going to watch how they do it, it's like amazing.
And also from a point of view of people who are things like line designers and production managers and things like that, who probably are always up against it, and who probably don't have the time as well to just for a second step back and be like, oh, and we do this because of this reason, because they're always like, oh, we've got to get this done, we've got to get this out. You know, I think it might it might work on both ways. Should we take one more question? Has everyone got one more question? You win.
Hi. In one particular part of Bradford, Shipley, I'm looking at the idea at the moment of using the auspices of a local council, town council, to bring a sort of community forum together. People who were created in that area and can communicate with each other and just share resources and things like that. Now, as you know, local councils at every level have no money. Is there any way that you would suggest that a council or similar public body could support you without
money? I don't know. I mean, I guess from my point of view, it comes down to things just like space and what you can have access to, and having space without a fee. If you know there's something that can be there. I mean, I guess even in Bradford and district, you know, the wider district, things like access to rehearsal space or workshop space is quite it's difficult. So if there was something that could be booked at a significantly lower price, then I think that could be something. I mean, ultimately that does cost the council money. So I don't know.
I don't know.
any like marketing stuff and getting the word out, you know, because that can often be the kind of crux and the kind of difficult thing. But if you're finding local people to kind of open to their networks and bring them in, and using them as kind of like key members who know about the project and can bring audiences in and talk to them on their level, always feels like something that we're kind of quite interested in looking at. Might be quite useful, and it's free. And you can get people to force people, which is always good, I think. Physical force or verbal force, depending upon what you think. And that also builds your network and builds kind of buzz around the project.
Okay, I feel mean. So there was one, the lady that had there. So.
But it's run by this company, and it's an open forum session. It's happening at Sunday, which means the food and culture. There's a lot of room, and these kind of conversations are what Duration is looking for. It's about meeting people, talking to people.
It's about
getting stuff off your chest. So if you want to just have a bit of a rage, it's quite open. If you want to just listen to people, and it's totally free forum, free flow, so you can be bored and be very, very logical. Life, so not done it, then I would highly recommend looking it up. I would imagine some of you will be going. If you're not, have a look at this. It's next weekend, and you'll see it's very accessible to devices. Times? It's all Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So, but you don't have to do all of it. You just get something like whatever you can go for. And it's just a way of responding to that. The big black hole, because we're not Manchester. Big black hole is cultural nostalgia. So us all talking to each other is always a good thing, and that's what D&D's about.
Thank you.
So hopefully that gives you a positive.
It does. And I just, when I said like one final question, there was someone right at the back who put their hand up. So I'm just, rather than being mean, I'm just going to say.
Thank you. So my question is really Kirsty. I don't know if you can hear me right now, but we've just celebrated International Women's Day. And I remember in a lot of the ways that you've done, a lot of the poetry and the things that you've performed before, women are a really key part of your pieces. So going forward, and obviously with today we had Izzy and Halima sharing amazing work, both women. So it's how important is that, do you think, in terms of like, just to sum up, we've just had International Women's Day. What do you think theatre should be doing to highlight women's stories, and how important is all that for you?
Yeah, massively important. The piece I'm working on at the minute is centred around 5 women I think it's massive. We don't get to see different types of women even in 2024. Do we like on stage, on screen enough? And even just the conversation before, you were saying like new women writers find it really difficult to get support or partners. So yeah, I think definitely like I will, centre women in my stories, and in terms of like theatre, local theatre stuff, like I would, more women. I don't know.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. That's that's another really positive moment to end on, and just to say thank you to our panel here. So thank you, Kirsty. Thank you, Ellie, and thank you, Karen, who's been a fantastic DFL interpreter. Although has been sent a lot of scripts, did actually do a lot of this evening on the fly as well. So that's really impressive. And thank you to you all for sticking around and being so generous with your time and asking questions. So thank you very much, everybody.